Hi, friends. My name is Kenton Whitman, and together with my family, we aim to share wilderness skills, mindfulness practices, wild edible plants, family adventures, and skills that break you free from the limits of civilized life. Join us by subscribing to our channel and joining our YouTube family. Hello, friends. Well, I'm back from the memorial. Thank you all for your kind words. It was really beautiful, actually. There's so many people that contributed in so many ways, sharing stories and memories of my grandparents. My cousin he's a photographer, and he had a movie he had put together that took a whole bunch of their old photographs and then had their voices, because he had them talk about these photographs and kind of their life story. And it was really remarkable to hear their voices again and their laughter, and to hear them talk about their life and their passions and their love for each other. So it was a really powerful experience for me. I was really honored to be the celebrant or officiant and get up there. You know, this is interesting for me too, because I was so terrified of anything that resembled public speaking for so long. And that shifted when we became the directors of entertainment for the Renaissance Fair. And suddenly I just had to start training actors and didn't really know what I was doing, but jumped into it with Rebecca. And that just brought out something so that I don't get nervous at all up in front of people, which was really interesting, because the first was total fear and paralyzation, and then it moved to, well, I can do this, but boy, the butterflies in the stomach, to now there's literally not any nervousness at all, which was really interesting to feel in regards to something that had been so fearful in the past. It was a recognition that we humans are not set in stone as far as where we are in our mental, emotional journey, that this can shift dramatically over time. And today I was hoping to share a shift I experienced over the weekend. And in a way, some of what I'll talk about here might seem something you just would hear about in any philosophical or spiritual circle, talking about being present with what you have and being grateful. But I find that a lot of these basic maxims about life that we hear, let's say, be in the present moment, those words mean one thing to a person today. They'll mean something almost completely different, much more profound perhaps, a year from now. A year from then might take on a depth of meaning that they never could have imagined a year ago, and certainly not 2 years ago. So in my own life journey, I've had these experiences of these major shifts with things that seem like pretty basic concepts. So to illustrate this, I was going to share a story of something that happened over this weekend, an experience I had, and how it created a shift in me. So there was a part of our family gathering where we were going through the remainder of my Nana and Pop-Pop's, it's my grandpa and grandma, my Nana and Pop-Pop's belongings. And there was all kinds of stuff out there, especially a lot of pottery. He was an exquisite potter, did this incredibly fine work in porcelain. And it was just seeing all his works there. I mean, those were the real treasures there. I knew that my family was really interested in a lot of those pots that he had thrown. And Mirabelle and Liliana especially just fixated each on one pot that they wanted to have to remember Pop-Pop by. And I was looking around, and Rebecca and I, we have a lot of stuff. We've gone through some massive downsizings in our life, and so we've been able to experience having a lot, having very little, kind of everything in between. We are in a time where we don't feel like we need a whole lot more stuff. And I knew that the girls had chosen the things they wanted, and Rebecca was interested in some of my Pop-Pop's porcelain pieces, and that there were many other people in the family that I hoped would be able to get those treasures. So I focused on one item that I was interested in, just one thing. That was really the only thing I was hoping I could take home. And this was a meteorite. There's a backstory to this. My Pop-Pop taught us many, many things. He was a scientist. And so I remember him sitting us down and challenging us all to make perpetual motion machines, and him teaching us about that, and doing robotics at a really early age. We learned about space too, and I would ask him all the time about meteorites. He had a farm with a bunch of land, and out in that farm was this great big boulder, and sitting in the middle of a field. And despite the fact that a meteorite that big would not look like that kind of stone and would have left a huge impact crater, as a child I was often convinced that this was a meteorite. And so I would go out there and sit on it and imagine that it had come from outer space. And since then I've been just always wanting to have a meteorite. And it's not something I'd ever spend money on, and I wouldn't want one bought for me or anything like that, because I learned eventually that this meteorite, it was probably 3 or 4 pounds, as I think I mentioned. It was probably pretty valuable, and I hadn't been seeing it as something valuable. I wasn't aware of the money aspect that it had, but I was aware that this was something from outer space that had belonged to my Pop-Pop. And so it infused me with those memories of those space adventures with Pop-Pop and imagining that giant boulder as a meteorite. And so I was hopeful that I could take this one thing home. And I knew my family had other desires, and of course the most important thing for me was that Mirabelle and Liliana could get the 2 pots that they wanted. So there was a selection process, and I knew that somebody else in my family also wanted that meteorite. And at first I didn't know that, but once I learned that, I kind of made the decision that I wasn't going to take the meteorite home. And I was going to take my name off of it. My mother, who has taught me so much about putting people before objects, was really trying to get this for me. And she could see that it was something I wanted. And this is where I'm going to break in and talk about desire. Because what I was experiencing was desire for something. And as much as I could couch it in wanting it to, the meaning that it held for me, the memories that it brought up, there was a desire for this object. And I could tangibly feel what desire is. And this is where I'm hearkening back to a spiritual maxim or idea. I think the Buddha spoke about desire being the root of all suffering. So I could feel that desire, and what desire creates is this kind of empty feeling inside of you that feels like it will only be filled by the desire being fulfilled. So the only way to fill that hole, in this case, was to take that object, that meteorite, and put it in the hole. Now, when we have a desire, those desires can own us. They can feel so strong that there's not much else we can think of except getting that thing for ourselves. Probably most of you have experienced this or felt this in your life. And for a moment, I could feel that desire. This was really meaningful to me. I've wanted one my whole life. It was the one thing I wanted to take home. Could I please just go home with the meteorite? And that desire was strong. But I immediately, at this point in my life, could feel that desire. and feel what it was, really. That it was creating an empty hole, and it was trying to hijack my better self. My better self that had learned, again, a great lesson from my mother, to put people in front of my own desires for things. So I was going to take my name off of it. My mom said, no, again, she really, bless her heart, wanted to get it for me. And the process went on, and I could see that my mother was doing the selecting. I could redirect her and say, don't select the girls' stuff first, because the girls' stuff probably would not have been taken first by anybody else. But go over and take the meteorite. And I could have had it. I think I could have walked home with it. But I didn't want that. That desire for the meteorite started to become replaced by something else. At first, it was just another desire, I guess, to have this other person be able to have that fulfilled for them. Is that good or bad to do to somebody? That's a whole can of worms that we could open if we're just encouraging those desires in others by helping them to fulfill them. But I knew it would feel good, and I just wanted this person to feel good. And that was more important than taking the item home. Then, after this whole thing went, and I indeed did not come home with the meteorite, I had I'm going to call it a leveling up of joy. Because I realized that thing wasn't important at all. I was going home with my 2 daughters, who I love more than anything. I was going home with my wife, Rebecca. I was going home with my girls, having got those pots that reminded them of their papa. And that's what I wanted selected first anyway. So as I was going home with all this, I realized these things that I have. And this was the important part. This is where we can say, appreciate the things you have, love the things you have. But it took on a new meaning. Because it's not just that I got to go home with my daughters and my wife. It's not that they're more special than anybody else's daughters or wife that they get to go home with. But it's that I had gone through some kind of shift where I could suddenly appreciate them more than I could the previous day. And this has been shifting and shifting and shifting for me over years and months, where suddenly we realize that I can drive home with my family and I can drive home to get home. Or I can drive home realizing the utter preciousness of this moment that I have with them. The utter preciousness of that right there. There didn't have to be any holes that needed filling. Because we all know as we have these holes, we just have to keep filling them over and over and over. There's really no end to filling up those holes. But when we can be present with the things we already have, when we can become with objects what Alan Watts called true materialists, actually being materialistic. He would say most of us aren't materialistic. We get a thing for the thing it represents, not to appreciate the thing itself or the direct feeling it gives me. So, to be materialistic, if there's something I have in my life, like a clay pot, a glass of water, a glass of tea, a person, this forest around me, can I be soaking this in, loving it, appreciating the amazement that I can be here? Because I could be right here and not be here. I could be filled with some desire, some hole that needs to be filled. And then I don't see the things I have. Or I could be present with this. I could be fully present with this. And this doesn't pass judgment. The person who I love dearly and respect so much, who got the meteorite, I cannot be in their minds. For them, it may not be a hole that needs filling. For them, it may be a deep appreciation of that thing. It could be true materialism, as Alan Watts spoke of it. But I do know for me, I felt a hole that I wanted to fill with a thing. And when I didn't get it filled with that thing, then I could question the whole whole. WHOLEHOLE, the whole whole. I could appreciate thusness. And wow, that evening, the way food tasted, the way sleep felt, cuddling with Rebecca, waking up, seeing my girls' faces, was as if I needed to experience not having a hole filled to come to the next level of appreciation for what I have. So in that way, good to remember sometimes that we might desperately want something, but sometimes it's maybe better not to get that thing. That's definitely what I experienced. If I could go back and replay that 1,000 times, I would let that meteorite go 1,000 times, because what I got in place of it was a gift 1,000 times more precious. So that was my lesson over the weekend, my friends, was a realization that sometimes the things we want in life, those aren't doing us the favor we think they are. They might be keeping us from gifts that are so much greater. And wow, I don't know what happened. This has happened periodically in my life. It's probably happened in yours, where you have, boom, a sudden revelation, and everything is just more clear. And for Rebecca and I, we've been talking about this stuff since we were in our teens, and it's been one after another of these. And each time you think, wow, I've come to something amazing. And then you find when you come to the next one that where you were wasn't really seeing things all that clearly. So I know I'm still probably not seeing things that clearly, but I'm definitely in a state of wow right now at the deep appreciation for everything I see around me in my life. And that includes you. Because wow, how many years I've been hearing from some people telling me how long they've been following this channel and been basically connected up with my family's life. And you watched us grow and explore. Hi there, fly. You watched us just move our way through life, and you've shared your journeys with us along the way. Some of you are watching and you've never commented, but once in a while, some of you peek in and say, hey, I've been watching for years and I've never commented. So I know there's many others out there like that. And I want you to know, I think we feel your presence and appreciate it. There's a lot more views on each video than there are comments. So I know that only some people are regularly commenting. And I do want to say, to those that do, that's so appreciated. My family appreciates every comment. The words and the wisdom you share, the encouragement, the laughter. Wow. I hope in sharing this, I can somehow pass it on to you. and that maybe it will infect you a little bit and help you to come to a new appreciation for the things you already have and you're already experiencing. Because literally, we don't have the things we have. We don't even have them until we're fully there with them. And fully, of course, is a gradient, as I was saying. That changes over time. But that feeling of presence with whatever we are experiencing right now, that's the answer, my friends. That is more valuable than treasure chests of gold. It is the treasure of life. This presence, this being. So much love to all of you. Share in the comments if you would. Whatever you like, of course. But I would love to hear about any time in the past or the recent past when you have experienced a big shift like that, and what it was, and how it changed your life, or how you perceived life. Okay, thank you so much. Love to you all.